Shame is that unconscious emotion that really makes us question our own self-worth. It's painful, it's silent, and it's incredibly uncomfortable. And many people experience a sense of shame when they quit drinking and move into sobriety. I'm Simon Chappell. I'm the Quit Alcohol Coach. And as always, I want to help you smash your sobriety. And today we're talking about shame. First of all, if you enjoy the videos on my channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification to make sure you get alerted whenever there's a new video. I publish 2 new videos every week to help you quit drinking successfully without too much willpower. In fact, you can enjoy the experience if you learn how and if you get the right mindset and the right outlook as you move forward into an alcohol-free life. And I know that might sound unbelievable. How can you enjoy quitting drinking? But I absolutely did. And I want to make sure that you do that too and you learn how to do it. And it's all about immersing yourself, really diving in with both feet, learning about sobriety and understanding what it is that you need to do in order to set yourself up for success. But today I wanted to talk about shame and learning how to deal with that, how to overcome it so that you don't become overwhelmed by those feelings, those difficult emotions that it can stir up. And it can be a really challenging one. I get asked about shame quite a lot. The first thing I'd recommend doing when you experience any feelings of shame is to pause for a moment. You've probably heard me say it before, but when you become aware, you're halfway there. That's my catchphrase for 2020. When you become aware, you're halfway there. It's so true. So become aware that you're experiencing those feelings in that moment and pause for a second. By pausing, it enables you to make a choice. You don't have to run away with the feelings. You don't have to allow them to become completely overwhelming. It just gives you a few seconds to make a decision around how you're going to respond. And there's a bunch of other tactics and techniques on my YouTube channel that will help you learn how to manage uncomfortable emotions, uncomfortable feelings. But I'm going to give you some tactics specifically designed for shame right now. Once you've managed to pause for a moment and you've identified that you're feeling and experiencing a sense of shame, try and think about where that story's coming from. What sits behind the feeling of shame? Now, there might have been a situation that's caused you to feel that sense of shame, but you need to dig deeper. You need to become a curious explorer and try and work out the full story behind it. Maybe you were made to feel ashamed when you were younger, when you were a child. Maybe there was somebody important in your life who embarrassed you, who made fun of you in front of other people and made you feel ashamed. And that's led to feelings of shame as you've moved through your life. And you may find that certain triggers that replicate that kind of behavior from when you were younger are what sets you off on the path into feelings of shame in adult life. If you can identify that, you'll probably have an aha moment where you realize that this is where those feelings of shame are coming from. And when you start to join up the dots and it all begins to make sense, you feel like you're completing a jigsaw puzzle. And then you can start moving forward towards healing and letting go of those feelings of shame. Now, please don't think that if you're feeling shame, it's something you can't get rid of, you can't eliminate. You absolutely can. And I'm going to give you the ultimate antidote to shame in just a moment. But there's some other tactics that really do help, and different things work for different people. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So I'd also like you to try just calmly sitting for a moment when you're experiencing that sense of shame, maybe in a meditation pose, or maybe just sit comfortably with your eyes closed, breathe in slowly through your nose and back out through your nose. Pay attention to your breath as you breathe in and you breathe out, and then start to try and identify whereabouts are you feeling that shame in your body. Where are you holding on to it? Maybe you're holding it in your heart. It might be in your head, but generally it's somewhere in your body, possibly in your stomach. Often it's common to feel it in the heart, as I mentioned. And when you feel it and when you can identify a place in your body where you're holding the shame, Try and breathe in and out of that place. And as you breathe in clean, fresh air right into the place where you feel the shame. And then as you breathe out, visualize the shame breathing out of that location. And you should feel it. Let's say it's in your heart. You should feel it start to soften, start to warm, and you should feel the shame start to subside. That sort of practice done on a regular basis can allow you to significantly weaken any feelings of shame. And I'd highly recommend trying that, especially if you enjoy meditation and you already recognize the benefits. You also need to pay attention to how you speak to yourself. Our inner critic can be the master of dishing out shameful feelings. Again, it's important that you pause, especially when you hear your inner critic. It's that moment where you just need to pause and become aware of it. And then ask yourself a simple question. Would I talk to my best friend like this? Would I talk to my kids like this if they were in the same position? Probably not. That's how you should be talking to yourself. Start to learn to become your own best friend. There's another video on my YouTube channel all about self-talk and managing the way that we talk to ourselves internally. If you notice that you've got a lot of negative self-talk going on and it's leading to feelings of shame, I recommend that you watch that. Now, sometimes we don't pause when those feelings of shame come up and we react to it. And those reactions can surface in different ways. We can experience low moods. Sometimes we can even isolate ourselves because we just don't want to be around other people when we've got these overwhelming feelings going on. Get those moods down in writing. Use your journal to express them, get them out of your head and onto paper. That often enables you to really rationalize them, make sense of them. And very often when you write them down, they don't seem as bad as they are when they're living inside your head. But become aware of the moods, the reactions, and the way that you're dealing with shame. Make it your goal not to have moods for longer than a certain period of time. So if you find that last time you were overwhelmed by these feelings, you spent 2 days in a really low mood and an awful funk of a feeling, then next time try and get it down to no more than a day. Set yourself that goal. Make it your personal best to try and achieve a lower amount of time. And actually say to yourself, I'm not going to allow these feelings longer than a specific amount of time, and work on getting that down. I'm pleased to say that these days when I encounter negative feelings, it's rare that they last more than about 30 minutes. In the past, I've had them go on for days, sometimes as long as a week, where I just couldn't get myself out of that mood. But paying attention to the way that I was reacting and how long the reaction was lasting for enabled me to really get a handle on that. And I think that one will really help you. But the thing that absolutely worked for me in destroying any feelings of shame was this. And I want to share it with you because it was so powerful. The other techniques are incredibly useful, but this is something that is absolute gold. And I really hope that you can grab hold of this with both hands, learn from it, use it in other areas of your life as well to become a better version of yourself. And this is what I did. I recognized that every time I had a sense of shame, that it went into my shadow. It was a dark feeling. So let's imagine you carry around a backpack. Imagine an empty backpack or rucksack. And in that rucksack, you put all of your dark thoughts, all of your shadow thoughts. So if you have an uncomfortable thought about yourself, instead of getting it out into the light, you put it into this backpack. You don't speak openly about it. You don't deal with it. You don't work through it. It goes into the backpack. And the same happens every time that we tell a lie, every time we keep a secret, every time we fail to be the honest and true version of ourselves or do something that goes against our value. It's another little bit of weight in that backpack full of darkness, that backpack that lives in our shadow. Now, a lot of us have done this for years and years, decades. And over time, that backpack becomes incredibly heavy. It weighs us down and it gets to a point where it just crushes us on the floor. And that's absolutely what happened for me. And that was the point where I realized I need to do something about this. I need to lighten the load. Now, at that time, I didn't even realize that I had a backpack full of darkness, full of secrets, full of fears, full of resentments, and full of shame. I didn't realize. But eventually I did. And by doing professional work with a therapist, I was actually able to offload it, to empty it, and to deal with it. And I want to tell you how I did that. But the first thing is recognizing that you carry these things around with you. When you don't work through them and deal with them in the moment or very soon after the moment, you're going to be carrying it around and you're adding weight, almost like adding weight onto your shoulders every time that you do it. So over time, I learned to live with a value of being completely honest and completely true to myself. I took a vow with myself that I would never have any secrets. I would always only ever speak my truth and would never lie about anything. And believe me, when I drank, I lied. I lied to get booze. I lied to go out drinking. As long as alcohol came first, I would say whatever needed to be said. But for some time now, I've been able to live in a place where I don't tell lies. I don't keep secrets. And I just keep that backpack of darkness empty. That is my goal, is to keep the backpack of darkness, secrets, lies, shame, guilt, any uncomfortable feelings completely empty. And this is how I keep it empty. Every time that I experience an uncomfortable feeling, a negative emotion, a sense of shame, I speak it. I bring it out into the light. And getting it out into the light is the antidote for shame. So let's say you're feeling a real sense of shame around behavior from when you were drinking, maybe over a specific episode. If you keep that inside, over time, it's going to weigh you down, especially with all the other things that you're holding on to. It gets incredibly heavy and incredibly painful. Instead, if you bring that out, speak your truth, name the feelings, put a label on how it's making you feel, and talk to somebody in a safe space, and I'll get to that in just a moment, you're going to find that you deal with it. It evaporates. It's no longer in your backpack. You've brought it out into the light. It's no longer in the darkness. It's not sitting in the shadows anymore, and it's definitely not going to weigh you down. And it's the same with anything else. If you've got secrets, find a place where you can share those secrets and talk about them, where it feels completely safe, where you don't feel judged. And I've found some brilliant safe places where I can do exactly that. I belong to an amazing men's group where we leave our egos at the door and we talk the absolute truth with each other. And it's been a godsend for me because I've been able to share things in there that I've never shared. And it's given me an outlet for letting go of some of the darkness that I've carried around with me for a long, long time. Things that I've felt shame about. And when I've spoken about them in a group environment and realized that nobody's judging me. In fact, some of these people have done things that are far worse than I'd done, and I'm not judging them either. So making sure that you've got a safe place, a safe space where you can offload any shame, any fears, resentments, or uncomfortable emotions you're holding on to is absolutely critical. And there's some incredible men's groups that you can find online. You just need to Google it. And the same in terms of women's groups. There's plenty out there. Lots of them are done on Zoom, and they're an amazing space where you can go in there and let go of any of these things that you're holding on to. The biggest antidote for shame is bringing it out into the light and speaking it. But also consider what actions you take that add to that weight in your darkness, that rucksack that you're carrying around. Because I've made my goal to keep mine completely empty. So I make sure I only speak my truth. I never tell lies. I never keep secrets. And it's made me feel lighter. I feel light. I feel free. There's nothing weighing me down any longer. I've offloaded everything I've needed to offload without any judgment. I made sure I found a safe space to do that in. And now I'm able to move forward. And I'm very mindful of nothing going in that backpack of darkness because it weighed me down for far too long. And also, in addition to men's groups and women's groups, there's some incredibly supportive groups on Facebook. And a lot of those have WhatsApp groups, Zoom calls, things like that. Again, where you can find a completely safe space. And it doesn't just need to be a group. There's certain things that are appropriate to share with your significant other, with your friends, with people you work with. So you need to pick and choose who is the right person or the right people in each specific situation to actually share with. But don't be afraid of sharing. There's a lot of things that we just don't talk about. Generally, people don't talk about those uncomfortable taboo topics like sex and how much money they earn. And I've learned to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And when you can become comfortable talking about the things that we keep in the darkness, that we hide in our shadows. The shadows are gone and you're only walking in the light. And it's such an amazing feeling. As I say, it's just made me feel lighter in myself because that weight is no longer pulling me down and dragging me down. And I think what happens over time, over the decades, is that we just add more and more and more into this backpack: lies, secrets, fears, resentment, pain, things that we just never deal with. And eventually we crack. And that's why you see so many people between the ages of 30 and 60 eventually ending up in therapy, turning to addictions, because they just can't deal with everything that they're carrying around with them. If we can get ourselves into a place where we're free and we're light and we're just letting go of things as they come up, by way of sharing, speaking, labeling the feelings, naming the emotions, you won't ever carry any of this stuff around with you again. The Dalai Lama talks about it in his book, The Art of Happiness, and I would highly recommend reading that. It's fantastic. It's got some amazing tips for dealing with those things. He actually makes no apology for refusing to keep secrets. And I must admit, I learned a lesson from him when I read that book, and from some other inspirational people that I've worked with as well over the years. And I must admit that when I read that book, it really made me realize that everything I'm doing in this regard is absolutely right. Because if the Dalai Lama's doing it, it's got to be right. He's probably the calmest, most zen person on earth. And he absolutely does this sort of thing. He doesn't hang on to those sort of feelings. He deals with them. He expresses them. He doesn't keep secrets. And when there's any sense of shame, which for him is very rare, it's absolutely brought out into the light. And once again, that is the antidote for shame. Get it out into the light. Make sure you only share in spaces where you feel completely safe to do so. And if you haven't got those spaces, you need to get out there and find them, because they are going to be your savior. So learn to speak your truth, learn to be the honest version of yourself. And believe me, if you've quit drinking and you're peeling back the layers of the onion, realizing that you're still hanging on to some kind of sense of shame, or you're still experiencing shame in the present day, then you absolutely need to do this. You're doing right by yourself. And all that's happened is when you've quit drinking, you've pulled back the curtains, you've taken the mask off, you've discovered the real version of you, and that's who that person is. And now it's time to let go of this. Bring it to an end. It's easier to do than you think. I hope it doesn't sound too complicated. If you need any extra tips or advice with doing this, just reach out to me, because I absolutely want as many people as possible to learn this tactic and to learn how amazing it is to live in this state of being completely shame-free, secret-free, just absolutely honest and true, and enjoying it, because it's a wonderful, wonderful experience. So do reach out to me if you need any more advice or tips on actually bringing this into your world and experiencing it for real.